My people no be smart, you know. The way this matter they go, you people don't come outside though, where they talk say, if the power of the court, say power of court no reach the Inec, then now don't step in, my people. Because a lot of Nigerians, they talk say, Inec no go fit hear wetin the court they talk lie. Say Inec, they do as if say, they above the court order. My people, it don't happen. Oh. EU people don't come outside though, where they don't finally talk say, make Inec adjust their mistake. Because right now, there are a lot of people who be say, they don't they complain. The innocent Nigerian people, they call on them. May they can't help. And they no go fit block their ear to decide to do as if they know they see them. Because these people, the way Inec they do, it be like say Inec they carry the people where we say they don't want, they give them. My people not be smart, you know. The EU people talk say anybody will get evidence of this election matter, will get enough evidence, may they start to send them to them so that then go fit take action. My people, it don't settle. Since when we say they don't carry matter go court, where court said they fear Inec to talk. Now, the people will be say they know they fear Inec to talk now. Matter don't land for their table. My people go like, make una go watch the video. Make una hear what the EU people talk about Inec, my people.
Ladies and gentlemen, throughout the mission we saw that Nigerians have a great appetite for democracy and are keen to engage in various civic activities. However, in large parts of the country, their expectations were not met. Further, many Nigerians were so disappointed with the electoral process of the 25th of February that on Saturday they decided to stay at home. The voter apathy that we witnessed is, in part, a clear consequence of failures by political elites and unfortunately also by Inec. We all remember how public confidence and trust in Inec collapsed on the 25th of February, primarily due to lack of transparency and operational failures in the conduct of the federal level polls. Up until the postponement of the state elections, Inec limited its communication to a few press releases and ceremonial statements. And these were insufficient to address public grievances and rebuild public confidence. Positively, however, from the 11th of March onwards, Inec introduced various corrective measures, and on Saturday we saw that some of those steps had taken effect. For example, sensitive materials were delivered on time, and the use of election technologies was improved. Nevertheless, polling on election day was again disrupted by multiple incidents of thuggery, intimidation of voters, polling officials, observers, and journalists, and this occurred in most of the states. Lagos and Kano, as well as other states across the southern and central areas, were most affected. Unfortunately, there were also many casualties and indeed fatalities. This is worrying, as the killing of even one citizen during the conduct of an election is one too many. Our observers noted that most polling units opened on time, with materials present and election officials ready to serve the voter. However, there was less pressure on Inec operations throughout the day, owing to a dismal level of voter participation. Vote buying, also directly observed by EU EOM observers, further detracted from an appropriate conduct of the election in many places. The use of election technology was more efficient this time around. By midday yesterday, gubernatorial race results forms available online range from 62 to 97%, depending on the state. A notable change if compared to the 25th of February election, when more than a quarter of presidential result forms were still missing at the declaration of the results on the 1st of March. Some 11,000 candidates competed in the state elections, among whom only a bare 10% were women. Notably, lead political parties fielded only 2 female candidates for highly prized governor seats. It demonstrates a clear underrepresentation of women in political life. Most importantly, it also shows the lack of internal party policies to support and promote inclusion of women. And let me also remind you that it is almost 40 years since Nigeria signed up to the United Nations Convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, and in so doing committed to eradicate discrimination against women in political life. Before I share our assessment of the campaign environment, let me stress that intra-party conflicts compounded by protracted deadlines for candidacy disputes created wholesale uncertainty for voters and electoral contestants alike. We observed that some court decisions about the electoral contestants were taken only a few days before the poll. Such timelines effectively reduce candidates' prospects to meaningfully campaign. Overall, campaigns in the state elections were highly competitive. Fundamental freedoms of assembly and movement were largely respected. However, the latter was impeded in some states by insecurity and executive actions. Further, organized violent attacks shortly before the polls led to a fearful atmosphere in some parts of the country. The campaign also saw many defections and individual switching supports from one party to another. Our observers noted that in several states, the abuse of incumbency gave an undue advantage to the party in power and limited the free expression of the will of the voter. Positively, voters in 15 out of 28 states benefited from professionally organized media debates, during which journalists questioned lead gubernatorial candidates on issues of local concern, while the fact-checkers probed their responses for accuracy. It helped voters to make a better informed choice on election day, even if most incumbents rebuffed media offers. Unfortunately, attacks and harassment of journalists that occurred on the 25th of February went unprosecuted. I would hope that those who assault journalists, as well as those who perpetrated such attacks during this Saturday's polls, will be brought to justice. Our social media monitoring shows that gubernatorial candidates' online communication was focused on issues, a positive change from the presidential contest. However, disinformation contaminated online information space and aimed to confuse voters. We also recorded some dangerous rhetoric seeking to sow ethnic division. Positively, fact-checking initiatives continue to debunk such content and strive to preserve the integrity of the online space. Last but not least, I would like to commend the efforts of civil society organizations. Between the elections, national observer groups raised awareness and provided important electoral information to voters. Their leadership actively participated in online and offline discussions, calling for greater transparency and accountability of Inec ahead of the state elections. As I mentioned earlier, the collation process is still ongoing, and the EU Election Observation Mission is continuing its observation of this crucial phase of the election. Therefore, I encourage stakeholders to keep committed to a peaceful process and address any grievances through the courts. In this regard, I am mindful of the fact that various aspects of the presidential election have already been brought before the courts. I understand that petitions may also be submitted regarding several Senate and House of Representatives elections. That being said, it is important that this mission maintains its strict line of impartiality and non-interference in accordance with our observation methodology. Accordingly, I do not propose to discuss matters related to those elections, as they are now likely to be sub judice. This is to avoid saying anything that might be construed as to prejudice the interests of any party in those petitions. As observers, we always hope to see a frictionless electoral process, to see democracy striving Unfortunately, wide expectations that the new electoral law, in particular, would notably improve the overall conduct of the polls were not met, due in part to the poor implementation of the law and lack of political will to achieve its objectives. The conduct of the 2023 elections revealed systemic weaknesses of election administration that, if not properly and comprehensively addressed, could lead to democratic backsliding. This can have costly consequences for any country on any continent. Considering the pivotal role Nigeria has for this region, for Africa and the world, this is particularly important at this time. Thank you very much for your attention, and back to Alex.
Thank you very much, Chief Observer. So now we are opening the floor for questions from...
I think it's important at this point to draw a distinction between this mission and the European Union delegation. So we do represent the European Union together, but we are two separate entities. So the European Union mission is here since early January, and our 14, some of whom you see here this afternoon, will be here until late April the 11th, and we will complete our reporting process within 3 months after today. And we will provide a final report with conclusions and recommendations. What you were describing in terms of EU investment in the democratic and governance process here in Nigeria is outside of our mandate. Nevertheless, it is important for us to be impactful and that the work we do is useful for Nigerians in particular. And in our engagement with political participants, but also especially with CSOs, civil society organizations, we have been reminded that the European Union's reports arising from these electoral processes have value and meaning. And we also carried out a follow-up mission from the last presidential elections in 2019, just a year ago, and we were able to identify progress that was made against some of the recommendations from 2019. So naturally there is some disappointment about the events over the last 3 or 4 weeks, but we will commit fully. This is why we have such a team of experts, why we're here for the long haul, why we've been here throughout the process, not just for election days itself, because we are committed to Nigerian democracy on behalf of the people of Nigeria. In relation to the infractions that you mentioned, again, I'm sorry to say that it's outside of our mandate to talk about the way in which investigations should take place or prosecutions should follow, indeed convictions. These are a matter for the criminal authorities. And as I mentioned before, we would encourage anybody with a grievance or who has evidence in relation to a grievance to share that with the appropriate legal authorities and to pursue those grievances in the appropriate legal channels. Thank you. I try to draw attention to this fact. It's far more than a detail. It's absolutely tragic that 21 people, according to our latest information, lost their lives in election-related violence, and that's really unacceptable. And we want to pass our condolences to the families of those who lost their lives. And again, I would emphasize that if anybody has information relating to these incidents, that they should share it with appropriate legal authorities. And by any standards, when this kind of activity happens in the context of an election, it is almost inevitable that it has the effect of suppressing voter participation. And unfortunately, that is something that was very clearly seen on Saturday, where the high level of violence unfortunately had that effect. And these are standards of voter participation that are central to Nigeria's commitments in its own legislation and the international covenants that it's already signed up to. So we are saddened to share that information with you, but unfortunately that is the reality.
Thank you so much. Next question.
Thank you for that question. I would say, I think we all know that it falls to Inec and Inec only to declare the results of the elections that took place on Saturday, and I am aware we have taken note of the fact.
My people, now the video now on a new watch finish, so on a see wetin happen for inside the video. All right, my people, I would like to end the video for you. Make una let me know wetin una think for the comment section, and if una never subscribe, make una subscribe so that una no go miss any latest gist way I dey upload. Now bye bye till I come on our way next time. Bye guys, catch you in the next video. Bye guys.